Hello, friends. Welcome back to the While We're Waiting Hope After Child Loss podcast. I'm Jill Sullivan, your host and one of the co-founders of the While We're Waiting ministry. We are excited this week to be preparing for our first ever While We're Waiting weekend in Alaska. We'll be flying to Anchorage on Tuesday and we'll spend a couple of days sightseeing before the retreat kicks off on Friday. Brad and I have never been to Alaska, and we're so excited about the moms and dads we'll be meeting there. We would appreciate your prayers for this event. Today begins a two-part conversation with my new friend, Tricia Patrick. In this first episode, you'll get to know her son, Jeremy, a miracle baby, a football-loving, bow-tie-wearing, big-hearted young man who adored children and dreamed of opening an orphanage one day. You'll hear about the complicated years following her divorce, the restoration that came after Jeremy placed his faith in Christ, and the devastating night in February 2014 when everything changed. This is an honest and tender conversation about suicide loss, about surrendering a child into God's hands, and about trusting Him even when the outcome isn't what we prayed for. I believe you'll be encouraged by listening in. Hi, Tricia. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Jill. It's great to spend time with you and talk about something that's near to both of our hearts.
Absolutely. Yes, I always enjoy that. Let's get started by giving you the opportunity to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you're from and what life is like for you there.
Okay, well, my life's a little bit complicated. I was raised on the mission field. I'm a missionary kid. I have also been a missionary in a couple countries, and now I have the privilege of being a missionary's mom. So I'm not sure if that's an M&M or if that's because MK, then, I'm not sure what that's called exactly. So through the years, I've had a lot of time, mostly in Latin American countries. So I'm bilingual in Spanish, and a lot of my jobs have been more customer service related or logistics coordination of shipping overseas, and being able to speak and write in both Spanish and English. And then I'm recently trying to learn Portuguese.
Oh, wow.
So I live in Alabama currently, but our family had lived in Tennessee for almost 20 years, which was where I had spent the most time in all my life. All the rest of the years prior to that, I just kind of was a ping pong ball, just going to lots of different states and countries and such. So that was probably the longest, just living anywhere. And then we made a huge jump, and about a year and a half ago, moved to Alabama, and following some grandchildren. I'm a mother to 4 children, which aren't, children anymore. They're all grown, 3 girls and 1 boy. And after suffering through 2 traumatic divorces, my husband, Kirby, and I got married in 2009. Then I gained 2 stepsons who were already raised at the time. And we currently have 3 grandkids and 1 foster grandkid. Oh, wow. And hoping to get him adopted in the next couple months, Lord willing. Yeah. So we have a lot of excitement and joy around here with little ones. Yeah. So that's kind of it, a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's a very full life. Missions are near and dear to my heart. My grandparents served on the mission field. My brother is currently with Mission Aviation Fellowship, and so I know the importance of missions, and I love that your family has been so involved in that and that your son is involved with that. That is awesome.
That's actually my daughter.
Larissa. Oh, your daughter.
She's the,
okay.
She's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. Well, we're here today to talk about your son, Jeremy. Help us get to know him a little bit.
Okay. Well, thinking of Jeremy as before he was even born, he is actually a miracle child. When his dad and I were married, we didn't even think my husband could have children, so we were quite shocked. He was actually a honeymoon baby. So
wow. Yeah.
We were shocked, surprised, and blessed. And I also had a condition that made it look like I shouldn't have this child. So it was a miracle that he was born at all. Even though I had high-risk pregnancy, I was actually in bed for 6 of the 9 months with
Mm.
Jeremy's pregnancy. So
Wow.
I learned a
Yeah.
lot of lessons there during that time. Then Jeremy, as a little boy, was just a typical boy. Lots of bumps and bruises and broken bones and stitches and, emergency room, lots of those visits. He just always was some kind of something going on. And then as probably, I think, middle school, maybe even elementary school, he became like just enamored with the Indianapolis Colts, that football team. And he's kind of was obsessive about things. So with that, it just kind of took over from there on. He just always was drawing pictures of football stadiums and goalposts and footballs, and everything had to do with Colts. And then Peyton Manning was the main player.
Sure.
He adored him. And so everything was either that or the team. It was so far out there that if you'd ask him what his favorite color was, he didn't say blue. He would say Colts, which was basically meaning royal blue, but
Right.
that's just how he was about things. I remember him loving the movie Cars, and he would watch it just so many times that he had almost the whole thing memorized. So that's kind of his nature, to be obsessed with things. And then he just was real loving and into he had a crush on the girls always from the time he was little bitty. He would buy jewelry for the girls, flowers, candy. And then as he got into middle school and high school, he was just kind of like a hopeless romantic. He asked for Nicholas Sparks movies and loved Michael Bublé music and love songs and all that. It was kind of crazy. For 1 year, for Valentine's Day, for his girlfriend, he did little origami hearts and put "I love you" in every language he could find around the world. I mean, just so sappy.
Yeah. I bet the girls loved him though.
Yes. But he had another side. He loved sports too. He tried I mean, not hockey, but everything else, baseball and basketball, football. He did everything. But he kind of stuck with football at the end. He really liked football. And then another thing about Jared, he just loved to dress up. When he was a little boy, he did. I think that might have been his sister's fault because they would dress him up. But then I think he just liked to look nice. And he would come to the supper table in a suit sometimes. Wow. And this carried over into high school, which was kind of unusual because he would go to school sometimes with the bow tie on. I have a picture of him at a campfire with like a button-down shirt and just like not the typical outfit you would wear out camping, stuff like that. Right. So I think in high school, if he'd had the chance, he would have won the best dressed award. But yeah, that was him, and that made him stand out. I think in middle school, they had like a little dance or something, and he convinced his best friend to rent a tux, and Jeremy's was hot pink, like
oh wow,
he stood out big time. But he loved it. I'm trying to think some other things about Jeremy. Just he loved people, but he just adored little kids. He loved to carry around. Anybody had a kid or toddler or baby, he would be picking them up and carrying them around. And he just seemed to always gravitate to the kids. I think he helped at his Sunday school class at his church. And he had a goal to one day open an orphanage in Africa. So like he just had a heart for kids. And overall, he just loved people. He loved kids and adults alike. It was kind of unusual at his age that he would be caring for even how adults in his life. Like he wanted them to feel noticed and appreciated. He's just really cheerfully upbeat and everything, but he would always make sure people were noticed. I think that's the right word.
That's a wonderful character trait to have.
Yeah, if they're an underdog, he did not want them to feel left out or, isolated or whatever. So yeah, that's probably more than what you wanted to hear about Jeremy, but that's
well, yeah, I feel like we really got to know Jeremy and what you just said. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now, you went through a difficult divorce
Yes.
during Jeremy's early years. Talk
Mhm.
about that and how it impacted the relationship between you and Jeremy.
So yes, our his dad and I actually we kind of had some rough years. Just circumstances were difficult. Let's put it that way. And then we got into some time where I believe his dad may have been suffering some mental illness. I'm not exactly sure. We never got it quite diagnosed, but yeah. So a real roller coaster and
Sure.
very erratic behavior. It got very scary, and I did have to separate from him. And during the 2.5 year divorce, it was a very long, drawn out divorce, and mostly because we were having to do custody battle.
Mm,
And during that time, I thought I was fighting for Jeremy's rights to be with me because I thought he needed a mommy in his life.
yeah,
And I was seeing some things that made me concerned about him being with dad, but he wanted to be with dad.
sure.
And after 2.5 years of really fighting the system and paying thousands of dollars, and it was like me against them. And I finally said, okay, Lord, what am I doing this for? Is
Mm,
this really for me protecting Jeremy, or is another motive? And so I finally stopped fighting.
yeah,
And uh, dad got custody of Jeremy, and I got custody of Jeremy's baby sister. So that did add some complication in our life. Jeremy was able to then see me and his big sisters every other weekend. And I visited Jeremy every Tuesday night. In some ways, that was neat because I got to have one on one time with him, a little bit more special time. And then every other weekend, his little sister would join us. And then every other weekend, they would go together. So they stayed together on the weekends. But yeah, because of the nature of the divorce, and it was him against me or the court's version of things, and then I think dad just got really bitter. Jeremy, I guess, was led to believe that I was, I don't know, the Wicked Witch of the West or something. I don't know. And
yeah, sure.
it was hard because, I wanted to try to help him, but when he'd come to my house so many times, he already was jaded, and he always thought that I was doing things to harm him because I had boundaries at my house and there wasn't boundaries at dad's house. So if I would make him brush his teeth, I was the enemy. It was
Mm,
that touchy. And so we went through a number of years where I really had to struggle to ask the Lord to help me not to just take it to heart, and then to just not fight the fact that I really didn't have the closeness with Jeremy that I wanted. For example, as a mom, I mean, you want to hug your child. He would resist allowing me to
mhm.
hug him. I'd tell him I love him. He would never tell me he loved me. And
Wow.
so it was like, it's just very different to have a child that's there by force most of the
Mm,
time. And then if he was given any boundaries, he would, run to tattle to dad and, escape being around me. And so we had some struggles, and it was, definitely a time that we had to work on things as he got a little bit older. God did allow him to see things in a different perspective later, but we can talk about that a little bit more in,
sure.
later on.
Yeah, as we go along.
Mhm.
So, Jeremy attended a youth retreat when he was about 13 years old. Talk about what happened there and how it impacted him.
So Jeremy, because of our divorce, he went with his dad to his dad's church most of the
Mhm.
time. And so they had a youth retreat, and Jeremy made a big decision to follow Christ. And his youth, teammates or whatever were very excited about it, and they saw that this was real. In my life, and me getting to see him, part time, I saw it over the course of months and into the next year, when I started to see changes in Jeremy with his attitude, with
Mm.
his behavior, not being so resistant towards me, abrasive even towards me. And in the following years, we started to see some warmth. I heard him say, "I love you" for the first time. I had him actually
Wow.
reciprocate a hug. He started being more of a servant to us in our home. He would do the dishes without being asked, or get up early on a Saturday morning and make pancakes for us. Those kind of things that are not even typical for a teenage boy anyways.
Right.
So we could
Yeah.
just see some big changes that were exciting.
Wow. What a special blessing
Yes,
to know that he made that decision and then to see the fruit of it.
absolutely. For
Yeah.
sure.
What a gift.
Mhm.
So, will you share with us what happened in February of 2014?
Yes. So, um, as I said, Jeremy had made a decision for Christ, and he was already like reaching out to other people. He loves other people. So he was always trying to encourage others, do for others, send people texts of encouragement. But again, I spoke earlier about his love of girls. He was
Right?
hopeless romantic. And when he fell hard.
Yeah.
And so he was in love, very much in love with a girl. And he's so serious about her. And at some point, he thought maybe he would like to start living at mom's house, which was like this roller coaster for me. I had given him over to the Lord years before. I had to give up custody of him. He's yours, Lord. He's, living at dad's now. And then for him to say, I think I want to live with you now. I'm like, should I even hope for this? And we
Right.
started some counseling, because I said we have a lot of work to do to
Mm.
repair our relationship and to see if this will work. And, if there's boundaries at my house and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, we tried that for a few months. And the gift of that was that we got to know Jeremy on a different level and see what his heart was. That's where I learned that he really wanted to open an orphanage one
Mm.
day, and just some of the things I would have probably not had learned if we didn't go to counseling to see if we could live together.
Right. Right.
So I got that opportunity. But Jeremy also had high dreams of being a football player, like being a star. And it seemed like just like when he was a little boy, when he fell and got cut and had broken bones, it seemed like same thing happened on the football field. He was getting
Oh,
hurt all the time. So he would spend a lot more time on the sidelines than, actually playing. And this particular week, it's like he'd had a number of injuries, and then he got a stress fracture in his foot from weightlifting for football. So he was in a boot, and he was so discouraged about that. And then he and his girlfriend were on the rocks, and he was so depressed about that. And it was like he was just, kind of really having a real down. And he asked to come to my house to work on homework on an off weekend that wasn't his normal weekend at my house. And I said, sure. But he didn't spend any time doing homework. He just moped around in his bedroom. And I was like, oh, man. But I gave him his space and let him just kind of, he wanted time away from dad and his little sister, basically. So
yeah.
he
Yeah.
got that.
Yeah.
And we had some chances to talk that weekend. I was real concerned about him. I had some experience working on the Hope Line years ago, and I kind of had some warning signs that I was concerned about Jeremy. I thought he's a little too depressed, and I asked him if he was thinking about taking his own life. I really felt that he was there because he was really rethinking everything. I don't think
Mhm.
I'm ever going to be able to play football. I'm not going to be able to do this or that or the other. Maybe I'll join the Marines. I mean, just so much. And so that it made me concerned. And I tried to ask him directly. He laughed me off. No, mom, I'm blah, blah, blah. And I told him, if you do feel like that, you need to let somebody know. You need to get help. Okay. So like the next few days, he went back to dad's, and then it was our Tuesday night visit, and I checked on him. We went out to eat. He was hobbling around on his crutches. He was kind of tired, and I try not to be too pushy, like how tell me more about your girlfriend. Tell me what's but I felt that he was feeling better, and he's a little bit more resolved to accept some of the things.
Sure.
So we went out to eat, and then he wanted to go to the mall and he wanted to get something for his little sister. It was right before Valentine's Day. So he's like, let's go find something for Ellie. And so we went to JCPenney, and he picked out some earrings to give to his little sister. And then
Wow.
he found a shirt for himself, which is what I kind of did. Many of our dates together was get him clothes because he wasn't going to really get much at dad's house, I guess. So
Right.
that's just our
And
thing.
we know he loved clothes, so
Yes, he did.
that was his love language, sounds
So
like.
we
Yeah.
got some clothes and his earrings for his little sister. And he's like, I'm just exhausted. Let me go home early, which normally I'd drop him back off around 8. And so we did take him home early. Little sister was a little mad at me because that meant her visit with dad was ending. And okay, I'm sorry, but Jared's tired. And we all went home, our respective homes.
Right.
And it was just a few hours later, we got a phone call that kind of was crazy that Jeremy was in the hospital. And I was like, what? And his dad always tended to exaggerate about things and would, tend to take the kids to the ER for a scrape and a bruise. And so I would always take it very, okay, he's at the hospital, but what is it really? So I told my husband, just stay home. I'm going to go check this out. But halfway to the hospital, I was getting phone calls from a lot of different people, like Jeremy's Sunday school teacher and Jeremy's sister and another college town. And I mean, it got a little crazy because I realized, oh, this is serious ER. This is not just a little run to the ER. And so, yeah, when I got there, it was very serious and they were trying to resuscitate him. And for whatever reason, I mean, God knows what reason, I had been reading a book that was talking about someone that had gone through like a brain injury. And so in my mind, as I'm seeing this, it was like, I could tell, I was like, they're working too hard on him. He's already gone. Like I could see this and it was like, my mind was already saying, stop doing that. You're going to just make him be brain dead, like he will survive, but brain dead. And so I was like, all this is going through my mind. It's crazy. But they resuscitated him to a point that they got him life flighted to a main big, Vanderbilt hospital in Nashville. And so that's when our family all ended up getting up to the hospital and just spending about a day and a half in a lot of prayer. A lot of friends, a lot of people joined us, and we did a lot of praying, and we did a lot of worshiping and asking God for, a miracle. At one point in this, like time that we had people around a table talking about it, praying about it, I just put it out there that whether Jeremy lives, whether he survives or not, I will still praise the Lord and serve the Lord regardless. And I think that helped me going forward. I put a stake in and I went, God didn't have to heal Jeremy for me to stay loyal to him, is what I think I was saying. And so Jeremy was indeed brain dead. And by the next day and a half, we were asked hard questions, whether we wanted to be donors, if he would want to be a donor. And I knew he and his dad and I knew absolutely he would want to be. Jeremy was willing to give his left shoe to someone. He would definitely give,
that's right,
a kidney to someone.
Yes.
Obviously I'm jumping around in this story, but at the first ER, his dad and I are not close at all, but I'm trying to figure out what had just happened. And I guess I'm sorry, I didn't get to that point. And his dad said that he had just tried to take his life. And I was shocked. I had just been with him a few hours before. And I mean, before this event, it was probably less than an hour. I mean, it was just crazy. And it was very hard to process, just going forward, we had so many people that joined us at the hospital. It was very unique. They said, we'd never been through this, but they don't let people into the ICU. I mean, they don't let hundreds of people into the ICU.
Right.
They let very limited amount of people, and they let his whole football team go through. They let his youth group, my church, his church, the other, just hundreds of people were
Mhm.
there, and they just really accommodated our family and the friends there. And it was just amazing what the staff did that time that we were there.
So nothing can prepare us for the loss of a child. And with your situation, with it being so sudden and dramatic and unexpected, do you feel like that God prepared you in any special way prior to this happening?
Absolutely. So, as we were talking about the divorce that we went through, and Jeremy and I having to live separately, and how I had to give Jeremy up, custody of him, I feel like God definitely gave me a preparation of releasing Jeremy.
Hmm.
I had to release him emotionally and spiritually and literally physically at
Yeah.
I think it was probably when he was 9. And so, then for this next step of release, I'm sure, I wasn't necessarily prepared, but I think God had
Right.
given me some groundwork
Hmm.
for having the attitude of letting him go. And, I mentioned that I have actually been through 2 very rough divorces.
Yeah.
And in those years too, God gave me a lot of prep of seeing God carry me through the hardest of times. And if he had not proven to me himself to me through those times, I would have had nothing to stand on in this moment. But
Right.
I knew I could trust God. And I knew
Right.
that if Jeremy was in fact dying or died, um, there was a reason, and that God had a plan.
Yeah. God is so loving to prepare us and soften these things sometimes. As a parent who has lost a child to suicide, do you feel like there are issues that you have to deal with that complicate the grief journey? And if so, what are some of those issues and how is God walking you through those?
Yeah, definitely. As I tried to work through grief, period,
Yeah.
there's that. Early on, suicide is it it's just it's yuck. It is
Yeah.
not a fun topic anyways, and then
Right.
it becomes your own. It's still just as disgusting, and you just feel you want to avoid that topic at all costs, and then it's in your face, and it is very hard to know how to handle it. It took me a couple years, frankly, to even start using that word.
Sure.
Hated that word. I still don't love that word.
Yeah.
I remember early on, his Jeremy's little sister was only 9 at the time. So we had a lot of, it was hard trying to help her understand when we didn't understand. It was hard. I felt like maybe her friends' family wouldn't want their kids to come to our house because we're the house
Mm,
where the brother did that. I felt
yeah.
like the stigma of suicide is so, and I was just the same as, anyone else
Yeah.
was worth, I was thinking in Spanish, culpable. I had the same problem with kind of judging the
Mm,
topic and the person and the people around the person, so because of that, I thought everyone else is going to judge our family.
mm,
I mean, what are they thinking of us? They're going to think just horrible things. I don't know. It's just crazy. So you do have this feeling of, not only do I not know how to handle this, but probably no one else around me knows how to handle this. And at the very beginning for me, I was a bit upset at Jeremy.
oh,
And
sure.
and this is going to happen, this will come up a number of times, probably for someone that goes through this. It won't be one time, it'll come up more than one time, where this, being angry at them for this decision. But initially it was because Jeremy had such a good testimony to all these people in his school and his youth group. And he was the one who would call and text people to encourage them and motivate them in their faith. And then I felt like he just destroyed it all in this one act. Oh, I had a hard time with that. Since then, God has helped me to see that he still can have a testimony. And his friends still were able to give me so many stories of how they, think very highly of Jeremy still to this day, and that his encouragement or testimony to them was not destroyed, thankfully. But it's still, that was what my thoughts were from the beginning, was just how could you have ruined your whole, faith testimony? So yeah, right. that part is, a challenge for sure. At first, I was humiliated, embarrassed, and ashamed. When we're thinking of suicide, of course, I wondered if people would still let their kid come over to our house, play with our youngest daughter. I was constantly aware of people around me, if they might be judging me or judging our situation. If I even tried to think of the S word, it just overwhelmed me so much.
Sure.
One thing I can say, since this is another part of my story, I had lost my brother years before, and I did not process it well at all. So I was determined at this time I would process, I would learn, and I would grow through this grieving. I would do it right. I mean, I really, quotes, you can't see,
right.
But yeah, I would really work to do this right. I wanted to be ready for whatever God wanted me to learn or to do with this. And he's very gracious, as you said before. He's gracious to us in that at the beginning, I really couldn't handle dealing with the topic of suicide. I could just barely handle the topic of loss of my son.
Sure.
And God is, even though I was ready to dive in, to deal with my grief, to process my grief, to do whatever I needed to counsel, there was still things that were just too hard initially. I didn't handle support groups very good at the beginning, which is weird because I'm that kind of person that you would think I could do that, but I couldn't. I couldn't read books at the beginning, but it's like God gave me, as I was ready to try to do the next thing, I felt he gave me different chapters at different time. And that's the word I used, was chapters. Like the topic of this chapter, and the chapter could have been for a few weeks or a few months, where it was one topic that he was helping me to digest and to actually process. And I didn't have to figure it all out all at the beginning. And I didn't need to even discuss suicide at the beginning. I just couldn't. And so he graciously helped me walk through one thing after the other. And then as I was ready for the next thing, and how I could tell it was time for a certain topic, it's just like when you are, if you're a churchgoer and you hear, it seems like the pastor is saying the same thing every single week, or everything on the radio is the same thing. That's how I knew, okay, it's time for me to deal with this topic, because it was like something on the radio and something at church and some friend and on the radio and on the TV. Okay, Lord, I get it. It's time for me to deal with this now.
That's right. They're all talking to you.
Yeah. So I started to see a pattern, and I realized that, okay, I can work on one thing at a time and then go. And so I didn't rush into dealing with that topic till probably in third or fourth year, really, so yeah, that's what I did want to share about that, because some people may think they have to solve it or get it right in their head, or
right.
Doesn't happen that easily.
Yeah. I like how you said you didn't have to completely resolve one topic, before moving on to the next one. And you didn't have to address everything all at once. You could do things a little bit at a time. I think that's helpful. As we close out this first half of my conversation with Tricia, I'm so grateful for the reminders of the steady comfort found in God's Word and the peace that can come from trusting His sovereignty, even when we don't understand the why. In next week's episode, Tricia talks about what she's learned about God's character through this journey, the scriptures that anchored her when she felt shaky, and the beautiful ministry that came out of Jeremy's story. We'll also talk about worship, music, and what it looks like to keep living with purpose as the years go by. It's an episode full of practical encouragement, perspective, and the reminder that God's grace really does meet us one chapter at a time. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to sharing the rest of our chat with you next Wednesday.